Hello everybody, welcome to PlayStation Access. I am here at the Marvel Spider-Man 2 little preview event with Bobby Coddington, who is the animation director at Insomniac Games. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having a little interview with us.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
So I just kind of wanted to start off by asking you, what was the most exciting part of working on Marvel Spider-Man 2? When you knew that this sequel was coming up, what did you think? Yes, I'm so excited to do some animating on this.
We were excited to sort of take things to the next level, to push the storytelling that we did in the first two bigger, to raise the stakes, and to also have our boss encounters have more to them, more layers, and more of an epic feel.
Is that kind of hard to do? Were you a bit intimidated by the thought of how do we make Marvel Spider-Man even bigger and better than the first one?
Absolutely, and like it hit us on the head early. You've seen the lizard to some extent in the demo today, and just the size of that character alone is a challenging thing to develop. So like right off the bat, we're trying to figure out how big he would be, and our Spider-Man ends up punching him in the knee or the ankle.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a great deal of work that you're going to have to apply to reach the levels that people hope for.
Definitely. How do you kind of approach it in terms of animating? Is it very much you can use the first game as a template, or do you have to kind of start from scratch with upgrading and improving the characters?
Well, it's great that we could build on, the first two games are very successful, but there's a lot of things about, especially with Peter, with the symbiote abilities that were built from the ground up, and new abilities to have him and Miles, continue their progression. All of our approach to character animation is a sort of form follows function with style. So it's not enough just to do the cool poses, and we work very hard on.
Thank you for the example there. These are great.
Very hard on figuring out what someone expects for it to be their Spider-Man, to be what they're nostalgic for and what they expect to see from it. And then once you've maybe got references for that, or you're able to iterate into those, they have to make sense physically. There has to be reasons that these things happen. And so you get this idea that if this could happen, then that's probably how it would happen. And I think when those things work together, it starts to feel right. And that really takes us into iterating like any character, whether it's Lizard or Kraven or the Spider-Man.
How do you show the growth of your characters through kind of animation and building on these? Like you say, it's not just about making the cool pose and going from there.
Our combat team deals with this the most, at combat and missions, and to some extent the boss pods as well. And there's not a magic trick for it. They really just experiment and iterate and try new ideas, and they level each other up. We all sort of give feedback, and someone will show a good idea and someone else is like, that's amazing, I'm stealing part of that for this new thing. And over time all these individual contributors make the whole picture.
You spoke earlier about kind of Lizard being big and figuring out where to get the punches in on the knee or the ankle.
Sure.
What's it like kind of having a playable character in, Venom, the symbiote, melded with Peter Parker? How do you kind of make that power fantasy become even more powerful? Because it's already incredible to play as Peter Parker, Miles Morales, have those Spider-Man powers.
Sure.
How do you level that up for the symbiote? Because it's a completely different angle.
There was a lot of experimentation with how the symbiote will come from the character, and how powerful that feels. There's a lot of it that comes along with the dialogue and the writing around it. The situation around it is sometimes the real chilling part, because we might have dropped his aggro stance lower.
Yeah.
But I mean, that in itself isn't the big picture. It's just a lot of different instruments playing to make a song, So if those things come together, then it just gets into like the progression of especially for combat. Our combat team will just work to make sure, is this next thing fresh? Is it something they're not expecting? Is it new? Does it feel powerful? And obviously things already felt pretty powerful, so it just had to keep going bigger and keep experimenting until it felt good.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of like the other side of it as well, like when you're not in control and you have these other enemies, how do you differentiate between them to make them feel kind of unique, and especially unique from the comics that they're inspired by and the other pieces of media out there? How do you make your own version of these things? Because that's always the case with comics, isn't it? You've got to have your own take on the source.
Sure. We want to create a character that you can believe in. So if you take the examples you've seen of Kraven so far, it's very similar to the comics, but it's our own take on it. And then everything from how it's written to what we'll pre-visualize in the animation department, and then what goes to the mocap stage and we'll actually get from the actors who play the parts, in this case Jim Peary, who just owns the role. Like when he becomes Kraven, like you just believe it. And then when everything works and it clicks together, it's fun, and that's the kind of click that we search for until we've got it. Like that's the thing, and so we'll begin to build and iterate on those things until they work.
What is the secret to making the perfect video game punch? Like, what is the trick for the animation behind that?
Good actions feel responsive when the player hits it. You got to feel like, yeah, that's what I did it. But it's got to read. So you got to have that balance between how fast something needs to happen for it to feel responsive and how it looks for it to read. And then a lot of times with games, sometimes things you have to, forego anticipation, So you have to have this thing happen and sell it through the follow through. So it might be more about hitting this fairly instantly and then what he does at that point. And I think that every combat move has its own things to consider, and that's why we have a team that just focuses on making that great.
Yeah. Between your two Spider-Men, I was going to say Spider-Mans then, but Spider-Men, the Spider-Heroes.
The Spider-Men.
The Spider-Men. Between the two Spider-Men, I know in the between the first two games, between Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, the difference between traversal was really impressive to see how Peter Parker was super fluid and kind of confident, and then we had Miles Morales who was kind of fumbling through a little bit more, but still very graceful. How has that kind of continued through in Marvel Spider-Man 2? Like, how does that kind of personality shine through in the little animations and movements there?
James Hamm was one of the people who first came in and started making Miles move the way that he does. There is a natural progression. He's no longer that new, so he was more gangly before. There is still that style to him, but he's a much more competent Spider-Man, and in this arc, you'll see him grow even more.
Was it fun to play with traversal as well, talking about the growth, like to go into these web wings and kind of figure that out and animate those?
I think for our animators, the web wings wasn't the biggest challenge that we faced, but it was such a big change. We're a swinging game, So everyone kind of wanted to see how that was going to work out, and I think we all love it.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so fun, and it feels so good. And then once you start to use it, you start to count on it. It is another tool for solving your traversal problems, and it fits in great.
Yeah. Because obviously you guys animate the world as well as the characters, how do you create kind of like a living, feeling city? Like what little animations go into making that happen?
It's actually a lot. So we have a living world team, and that's their primary focus is the civilians, the traffic system, and then additions like we're trying to have more people living in their spaces, or like are actually in the buildings that might look out if you're on the wall, and it's making Marvel's New York come to life. Is we take it very seriously, and we dedicate a lot of people to that.
Yeah. What would you say the biggest challenges you faced as well? Now, in the previous answer you were talking about, that wasn't the biggest challenge we faced. So what would you say was the hardest part putting this together, or maybe the most satisfying one?
I think the lizard sequence it's something that we're all proud of, and it took so many different. I mean, this isn't like a combat thing or a cinematic. This is every pod and every department, working together on something that is coming at you in a very massive and satisfying sequence. So I think his presence and the different things you're going to encounter during that sequence are satisfying. It's what we set out to do. Like we're gonna do this. We're gonna go big. We're not gonna, try and do something easy. We're gonna swing for the fence. And so that came out good. Other things that I think work out. There's an example of a character working out that's Craven. So since you've seen that, everything from the character model to the head rigs performance, we got Jim Peary's performance coming through the character, and then what animation does, around that, staging, cinematography, editing, like all these things are working together, and it's fun, and you can tell it works. It makes you happy, and you're like, yep, that's what I wanted, Craven.
Is that the goal with animation? Just until you hit that kind of fun bar, is it kind of a feel?
Yeah, once everyone thinks it's good, you're in good shape. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to, video games weren't always known for, top tier storytelling or visuals, and we're with editing and cinematography and the hand-keyed animation. Our actors are fantastic. We have an incredible group of stunt people that help us solve problems. We'll present them situations and build elaborate rigs and work with them on how we can get data for either entire moves or that can be embellished in animation, or even just pieces. I just need this certain flip or how they landed. Yeah. And then we'll even do elaborate things like we'll have our actual like Naji or Yuri being a Spider-Man, and they'll kind of hop through the scene and say all the lines and hit poses, but the stunt people will be going along with them, and so we'll have 3 different stunt guys execute the stunts.
You're making me want to move as well.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah. It's so it's ridiculously cool, and and then we take all that back in animation, and if it's in game, then we'll piece it together so it works like under the player's control of the camera, and then if it requires cinematography and editing, we'll do that until you believe it and like it.
I definitely like it. From everything that we've played today, it looks incredible.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you one last question.
My team thanks you.
Well, it's good stuff. Give them the thumbs up from me and PlayStation Access, of course. But yeah, one last question is, I'm a massive fan of Spider-Man the Cat. I'm a really big fan of Spider-Man the Cat. Yes. I need to know if Spider-Man the Cat is okay and if he's coming back in this game.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I want you to experience it. This is not a cat-free game.
Okay, that's enough.
I hope it's what you want.
That is what I want. Are there any other creatures? Any other quirky bits added?
There are some fun things I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay, that's fair. But there is cats. You heard it here. There's cats.
There's cats.
Thank you so much for a wonderful interview and striking so many great poses, man. You need to start getting that on the catwalk. Spider-Man the catwalk. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you to you guys for watching, and keep up on the channel for more Marvel Spider-Man 2 coverage very soon. Bye.
PlayStation